Mao is just built different. She is just built different. What a special, special girl. I was kind of expecting this whole scene, obviously from the PVs. We seen this shot where she was getting super excited about something being poisoned. So finally we get to see that scene. We get to see the after scene of her just being super excited about the whole situation. It's just fantastic. It just adds more to how much I love Mao as a character. She's goofy. She is so weird, and it absolutely works. But yeah, episode 6 of Apothecary Diaries, definitely a fantastic episode. Really does feel like things are really picking up right now, and the next episode preview looks like it's going to be pretty exciting. So I'm really pumped for what's to come. But yeah, let's dive into episode 6. We get like 3 segments this episode. This first segment is really showing Mao as she's in the back area with all the ladies in waiting. We're seeing a lot of seems like faction wars. I mean, it makes sense that all these ladies in waiting, they don't like each other, and so obviously they have to show up the other side. But I just think it was really funny that it is the lady in waiting for Luhua that are actually coming after Mao and the other girls. And it's kind of funny because it seemed like the entire time they didn't know who Mao was. You guys should be dressed up, and my gosh, they would hire such an ugly girl like her, and they haven't yet realized that Mama is standing right there. At the same time, Yinghua is getting all upset because she's insulting Mama. These girls for Gakyo, they absolutely love Mama. Like, after everything that happened, she's more worried about them, and they just completely fall on their knees about it. They just love her. But no, there's that shot, Mama realizing, oh, she doesn't know who I am. And it shows this brief shot that we haven't seen before, but apparently she threatened one of these ladies in waiting. She's like, I'm going to tell my father about you. And she's like, well, I guess I'll do things to you that you can't tell your father. Something, again, that she has actually learned from the time that she was hanging out with all these girls. That, yeah, she could do some things to them that she'd be too embarrassed to talk about. But yeah, finally putting her hand up to her face so that they can't see where the freckles was. And she panics and runs away. Super good. But no, the part in the back that I think is the more interesting thing is that it does seem like everybody is coming to Mao to give her one of these hairpins. This whole party that the Emperor's having seems to have a tradition in it where people go around and give hairpins to the different lady-in-waitings. Yinghua says that it's a way for them to recruit talented workers in the flower garden. Obviously, these girls. Which is kind of interesting, the idea that there's a way for other groups to sort of come in and recruit the lady-in-waitings that are for these concubines. Like, why would they allow that? But it seems like this is a thing. And yes, apparently one of these soldiers comes to Mao and hands her one of them. She thinks it's a consolation prize. But no, I like the fact that Yinghua is like, there's also another aspect of it that I can get into as well, and Mao just doesn't want it. There's a side of me that thinks Mao knows what they're wanting to say, but she doesn't want to hear it because she's like so disinterested in it and just kind of walks away. But yeah, then Lihua comes by and she gives Mao one of these hairpins. Again, that's what makes me believe that this is a part, like a tradition for this particular thing, which completely upsets her lady in waiting. But that leaves Mao with now 3 hairpins. A soldier, Jinshi, and Lihua have all given her hairpins, which yes, makes sense that that might be a little bit of an issue for Gyokyo. I mean, Gyokyo already mentioned the idea that when Jinshi gave her a hairpin, she's like, you betrayed me. You were supposed to be mine and mine only, and you went off and betrayed me. But it seems like, yeah, now she has 2 more to kind of contend with. Really great, though. But then we also had a brief little discussion about Lishu. Now, this was a funny scene. Yes, they fooled me. I mean, perfectly clear, they fooled me. They were talking about the fact that this Lishu, which is like the youngest concubine, she's only 14 years old now. She actually became a concubine when she was 9. Now, the trick that they had in it is this kind of conflict that was happening between her and Ado. And this idea that one of them was the mother-in-law of the other, because the previous emperor, yes, had one of them as a concubine. Now, yes, the assumption is it's the 35-year-old, the one that's been around the longest. But no, it was actually Lishu. The previous emperor had a 9-year-old as a concubine, and yeah, the assumption was that it was Ado, and it wasn't. So that was a nice little kind of trick there. And yes, it technically adds more to the reality of this time period. It's not like you tell the emperor she's too young. You just don't do that. He don't care what your moralities are. If he finds her beautiful and takes her into the palace, that's just how it is. It's just kind of a harsh reality of that time period. It's just like the whole thing with Mao and the idea that when she was traveling a lot, she put the freckles on her face because she was, yes, concerned that she was going to get pulled into an alleyway and then take advantage of her entire life. There's no moral codes here, and yes, especially for the emperor himself. But yeah, it seems like the previous emperor had Lishu, and at some point he passed away, and Lishu left the palace, but then was brought back by the current emperor. And it does feel like throughout the entire episode, there seems to be some sort of issue with Lishu. The idea that she's not comfortable there. Yes, it sort of implies the idea that she's uppity, that she's full of herself, that the previous emperor may have had her, and that's what makes her special. But it seems like she doesn't want to be there. She's not comfortable there. This very brief shot that we have at the very beginning shows that, yeah, the lady-in-waitings are all bickering about Lishu, that she's picky about her food, which, as we find out later, is probably them trying to feed her some sort of fish, but it doesn't seem like she's very happy. She's not happy there. She's uncomfortable, which, yes, could technically tie into what ultimately happens in this episode, which is that somebody tried to kill her. Somebody doesn't like her, and somebody's trying to get rid of her. She might know that. She might sense that. She might be in fear for her life, and that's why she doesn't feel comfortable there. But yes, the next part of the whole episode is, yes, the poison tasting. As Mao Mao is there, all the other lady-in-waitings that are there for tasting the poison, and she's kind of going through it, and she's getting excited. She's like, Mao Mao wants to get poisoned. She's so excited about that. She's looking over to the other ones, and they're all like terrified. One grins, and she doesn't like that. All these people are terrified. They even have like some of the people, the soldier that gave her the hairpin. He's over there with somebody, and that person's like, man, check out that one. She looks so excited. She's like, what's exciting about watching these girls literally eating and probably dying? Like these dispendables that just sitting there eating and waiting to die. Somebody eating in fear isn't appealing to him. But yes, of course, he ends up seeing Mao Mao and getting super excited because, yes, she ends up finding something. But no, I like this fact that, again, it kind of shows that analytical side of Mao Mao. Even before the poison happens, she's noting things. She's noting about how, yes, this is this one dish. It's obviously like the favorite of the emperor himself, but there's a change in the ingredient, which doesn't make any sense. The cook should know exactly what the emperor wants. There's no way that somebody's going to make this mistake. So if it has an ingredient that's been swapped out, somebody screwed up. I mean, you can say that we didn't have that ingredient. No, no, you're going to get the ingredient that he wants, and you're going to make the dish that he wants. So it obviously triggers something in Mama, like, this isn't right. So maybe the servant, maybe the cook, somebody messed up. But yes, she ends up finding the soup to be poisoned and gets super happy. Like I said before, Mao Mao's built different. This is something she's excited about. She's like, the tingle on the tongue is so enjoyable. Something that she's searching for. It is interesting to see that despite the fact that she does have an immunity, that she's built this immunity up, there's still an aspect of it. The moment she notes the poison, she leaves. She calls out that this has been poisoned, and she gets up and leaves. Which, yes, technically makes sense, and depending on how they kind of setting this up, yes, technically the person that is the poison taster in a setting like this would get up immediately and leave. Now, it's obviously because she's getting up to leave because she's got to go spit it up. But yeah, you don't want to die on the stage there in front of the emperor. That's just something you're not going to do. You're going to get up and leave. You're going to show that respect. But yes, we find out that she technically leaves to go puke it up, which was surprising to me. Like I said, I was expecting this to be something that she would consume and she'd keep it. But yes, she's built this immunity, but she's not immune completely. So yes, it's something that she's going to want to get out of her system. She's going to want to get it up. Now, she technically says that she wanted to swallow it and keep it down because then it would go into her system and she's so excited about that. But no, she spit it out and washed herself out. But it was interesting because Jinshi comes by and notes the idea that one of the other ministers didn't believe it. Now, I'll be curious if this is something that, yes, technically, they're not going to want to take her full word on it just because Mao Mao is a lady-in-waiting. She is a poison tester. They're going to want to make sure that she's telling the truth because, yes, as Jinshi puts it, this has turned into a massive thing. This is a big deal. Somebody tried to kill one of the consorts and possibly tried to kill the emperor himself. They're going to want to know. They're going to want to check this. They're going to want to make sure. So one of the minister apparently tried it and collapsed. And so she immediately goes, oh yeah, here, you can have this. It'll purge him out. But no, this is an interesting scene because, one, it's really, really goofy. And seeing Mao Mao just talk about how she likes the tingle feeling. She wants to get more of it. Hey, can you get me the rest of the soup? I want to try it some more. Like, this is a thing that she just likes. Again, built different. But it is interesting to finally see, for the first time ever, and I was expecting this eventually, the first time ever, it feels like Mao Mao is taking interest in Jinshi. And the idea that in this moment, he's fearful for her. He's grabbing her, being responsible and saying, come with me, you have to go to the infirmary. We have to take care of you. This is a big deal. Taking her there, giving her some medicine so she can puke it up, all that kind of stuff was something that she's seeing was different. He looks different. He looks more grown up. He looks more his age. At the same time, he looks youthful. Now, yes, she's cracking jokes in the middle of this whole thing. The idea that, yeah, he's got a little disheveled going on. He looks a little bit more worn out than usual. Seems like, maybe he's been spending a little time with somebody. He's got a hairpin in his hair. So maybe he got picked up by somebody and, yeah, had some little time somewhere. But at least shows that Mao Mao sees a different side of him. Honestly, the last episode, it felt like there was something building up. And that was a lot in the idea that he was upset about what she's gone through. But she never really picked up on it. It didn't seem like she was going, oh, Jinshi's being a nice guy. She just was basically telling him very matter of fact what she's gone through and saying that it's not your fault, move on. It wasn't like she was attracted at all. So this is kind of like our very, very first sign of it seeming like Mao Mao is getting, at least seeing him in a different light. And that's enough. I personally don't really feel like it's necessary that she gets with Jinshi, but it's obviously set up Jinshi as being somewhat of a romantic interest, but at the same time, I like their chemistry. I like seeing something build within them. Because obviously, it's not like she's going to be getting... It's obviously she's not going to be getting away from him anytime soon. But yes, of course, we have the investigation moment. We got to figure out what happened. And of course, Jinshi immediately goes, all right, Mao Mao, what have you figured out? I like how he doesn't even beat around the bush. He just immediately goes, all right, we got to figure this out. What do you think? He's just basically saying, do my job for me. What do you think? What happened? Just tell me, give me the lowdown, and I'll lay down the justice. And of course, Mao Mao asked for them to bring in Lishu and her poison taster, which I thought was interesting. Because, yes, the obvious conclusion at this point that we have is that Mao Mao noticed that the poison taster for Lishu was grinning. And so it already kind of paints this evil picture for her. She's doing something bad. And I'm still curious as to what that is. Why does she have that face? I think what it's going to turn into is that poison taster, the one that gets corrected in the end of this episode, the one that was tasting for Lishu, she doesn't like Lishu. I think in the end, this poison taster did not like Lishu. I don't think she intended this, and I think she got really upset by the whole situation, but I don't think she likes Lishu. Better way to put it, she doesn't like Lishu, but she doesn't want to kill Lishu. That's the key thing. So yes, her being corrected, she's terrified, and she's like, crap, I'm going to get beheaded because of this. But no, she's accepting this discipline, and she's wanting to correct it. But she still doesn't like Lishu. In the end, I don't think she likes Lishu. So it's kind of an interesting thing to kind of add to it, even though it's not technically spelled out, and we might get into that more later. I'm sure that this isn't the last we're going to get Lishu, and I'm sure that we're going to get more about her, how she doesn't feel comfortable there, and what her lady-in-waitings actually feel about her. But yeah, I really enjoy this scene because it highlights, obviously, allergies, which, again, seems like in this time period, they don't really fully understand. Mao Mao has an idea of it, but she doesn't give it the name allergies. She just says there's certain things you don't eat. Certain people, certain things you don't eat. For me, it's buckwheat. I've tried it. He's like, you don't eat buckwheat, but you eat poison. She's like, okay, let me explain further. It's not things you don't eat is actually things that give you some sort of reaction. And what she's saying is, yes, she knows that Lishu has this, rash that she was itching at. And that's obviously a sign that she's allergic to this type of fish. And Mao Mao says, yes, I've tried to build up an immunity of this, and it's something you just can't do. It's unfortunately unlike a poison, that's the odd thing. And it's so interesting that it kind of points it out. The idea that Mao Mao is willing to eat poisons over and over again and test poisons on herself to build an immunity, and she's able to do that. She doesn't die. She doesn't collapse like the minister did. But buckwheat, something she's allergic to, she can't build that immunity. She can't really kind of build that up. She's been trying, but yes, some cases, she can't even breathe. And yes, she points that out to the poison taster, that they didn't do their job correctly. That, yes, that right there it is essentially poison. It's poison to Lishu. And thus, doing that, you're essentially poisoning her. You should have known about this, and you need to take better care of her. And then proceeds to give her everything that she needs to know in order to avoid those things and do better. I like whenever Mao Mao kind of lays down the justice, like, you're going to do this, and you're not going to screw up. Got it? But yeah, great little scene. Obviously tragic scene that Lishu's a little upset there. But yes, following this little scene, Jinshi asked the same question I am. It's like, okay, so what about the poisoning? I mean, she did establish the idea that there was a swap around. That Mao Mao did pick up the idea that this was something that was meant for Lishu. That ended up for Gyoko. She's figured that out based on what they ended up serving. So the question mark is, okay, what about this whole poison thing? We've established that she's allergic, but what does it have to do with the poisoning? Which, yes, Mao Mao points out, yeah, if none of the other dishes are poisoned, and that was meant for Lishu, then somebody's trying to kill Lishu. The rest of it, I don't know. I'm just a lady in waiting. Peace out. Jinshi's like trying to get her to do his job for him, and she's like, I'm just a lady in waiting, but yeah, technically, they tried to kill her. I'm out of here. Later. It's tragic. I think the idea, especially Lishu, who technically is 14 years old, the idea of somebody trying to kill her is tragic. I can't even think of what would go through the mind of essentially a child, an early teenager, and the idea that somebody's trying to kill me. That's just, I wouldn't be able to process it. I mean, yes, it's hard to process as an adult, but even still, more so as younger. Like, why? Why would somebody want to kill me? They're trying to connect it somewhat to the whole wooden tablet thing that they were trying to search for, but they still haven't found anybody with a rash, or even the poison taster didn't have a rash, or a burn mark. So it seems like they're trying to connect to that, whether it's connected or not. Mamo has already mentioned before that the tablets themselves, she assumed was a possibility that they were using those in order to communicate. Like they were some way of encrypting to communicate between each other. Not necessarily that it has anything to do with what was on those sticks, has anything to do with the poisoning. Just that that's a line of communication that's happening, and it seems like the side effect to that is these burn marks. Just like the guy earlier who had to have the ointment for Mamo. But yeah, the conclusion is that it possibly has something to do with the servers, or possibly the cooks that was for Lishu. What I got an indication is that each one of the concubines has their own server, their own cook, and the one that was providing for Lishu obviously screwed up, but it also ended up to Gyoko instead because the server went to the wrong person. Or possibly, here's the other thing they're not really picking up on here. What if the server mixed it up on purpose? What if it wasn't Lishu that was supposed to be dying, but actually Gyokyo? I think there could be a sense of misdirection, but we'll have to see. One last thing that I forgot to kind of get into was, yes, they technically brought up the current Empress Dowager, which I don't think they've actually brought up before, but yeah, they kind of pointed out that she was there, and she has two sons. One is the current emperor, and one is his younger brother. Now, yes, this is where we're kind of getting into a question mark, because it seemed like it kind of went out of its way to have Yinghua point out the fact that the youngest is very sickly, and he was here up until a moment ago. So it implies this idea that there was this younger brother of the emperor that was at the party. They're sickly, and at some point they left. Did they leave because they were sickly, or did they leave because they knew that food was coming up here soon and he didn't want to be in the area? It does bring up a question mark there. I'm not quite sure if it's an attempt to take over the throne from the emperor himself, or even if he'd had the ability to because of his illness. It might go back to the Empress Dowager. Again, depending on... This is supposed to be set in like a alternate history China, but again, I don't know the exact political system. Sometimes are different. Anyways, fantastic episode. More great Mama moments, and absolutely love her to death. It's so funny. But yeah, some really great little pickup points, getting some tension built up, and finally a poison attempt, which was really exciting stuff. So excited to see where it goes from here. But that's my thoughts on episode 6 of Apothecary Diaries. Looking forward to the next episode. Slight spoilers here if you don't like to check out the preview for the next episode. It looks like Mama's going back home, which is very interesting. Maybe they're going to give her a little bit of a vacation, which I wasn't sure if is actually a thing that they can do. But again, maybe due to the fact that she saved Gyoko, or technically saved Gyoko, yes, but saved Lishu as well. Maybe they're going to give her some time off, and maybe she can go back home, check out her dad, make sure he's all right. Have a little brief moment there, get to go see the ladies at the red light district. That would be great as well. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the episode 6. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you got my content and news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.